Hey, everybody, it's Honesty, and we are back, AG and myself,
Yay!
for a new season of the Right Honesty podcast. We have a couple things in store for you all this season, but we are starting with one of my favorite authors on the planet.
Me
I put
too.
her up there with Octavia Butler and Alice Walker
Me
and
too.
all of the, Toni Morrison, all the Black women authors, but not just the best Black woman author. I put her up there with the best authors
Yes.
in the game, period, no matter what they look
Yes.
like or where they come from. We are speaking today with the incomparable Joan Vassar. Joan, how are you doing?
I'm good, ladies, and I'm happy to be here.
We are happy to have you. Attorney General, how are you?
I am excellent. And I am also bursting at the seams with excitement this episode with Joan. It's been a long time coming, and you and I have both had the benefit of talking
Yes.
with Joan offline because she is so incredibly generous with her time. But the opportunity to talk to her on the podcast is a gift. So, Joan, we love you, we appreciate you, and thank you so much for giving us time today.
And for
Oh,
our new readers, really quickly, so y'all know that my podcast co-host is Adrian, but when this started, we weren't sure that she wanted to have her true identity revealed to the world. And so because she is an attorney, I just was calling her Attorney General when it just started, when we just started podcasting together. But y'all know who it is, but I still call her Attorney General for the show.
That's also AG is also my initials.
Right. AG is her initials as well. So we're going to jump right in. Before we started recording, Adrian asked a really interesting question, and I'm going to let you guys kind of go back. Adrian, if you could recap the question for us, and then Joan, if you can continue your answer, and we'll jump in and give context if we need to.
Okay, so I think many folks who will listen to the podcast will have read the series, mindful that there will be those who haven't. And so maybe, HP, before we jump into the Fanny question, I do just want to start with, and Joan, I think you know this from our conversation, because I am one of those readers who was very hesitant about reading this series because of my own baggage about slavery. Right.
Right.
And which most African Americans have in some way or another. And what I had heard was, oh, no, it's a historical romance, but set in slavery. And I was like, I read to decompress. I can't decompress and be reading about slavery. Those two things seem to be mutually exclusive. And it was a fellow reader, and I don't even remember who it was or in what context it was, but someone else who acknowledged that same anxiety and disease about it, right? And said, I too was very hesitant because I couldn't get past the notion of reading a book or a story and being able to enjoy a story that's set in the context of slavery. And not slavery is just like an aside, but like it's in slavery, right? We are talking about freed men who had been slaves and who continue to go back and so on and so forth. But the person said, but I am so glad that I gave it a chance because it gave names and experiences and life to those who I hope had this kind of experience once they got free. We know people got free, but we didn't know much about what might have happened afterwards. Right.
Right.
And that was what unlocked it for me, because I was like, oh, okay, so this is an empowerment. Because Joan, you know that there are stories with like slave masters falling in love with slaves, and people follow that line, and there's plenty of books on that, and or slaves who were in love, and there's books on that. But this was people getting free. I don't got to tell you what you already know about your books, and that made me take the leap. And my God, I remain so grateful that I got past my own BS and dove in, because the gift of this series, Joan, the blessing of this series. I remember saying to you, and I think I was emotional when I said it, I hope that there are those of our ancestors that had the Black Elbert, experience, right? That experience this community and this future, because there were those that got free, and yes, they were free, but they struggled, right? They struggled.
Right.
And that's the story that was left of them struggling, not necessarily thriving in their freedom. And that's what you gave us here. And so I just wanted to say to people who may listen and they've seen it referenced, they've seen people raving about the book, I promise you, it is not what you think, and so much more glorious than you could ever imagine. And I hope that encourages some folks who maybe think, this is now how I can decompress, to take the journey, because, oh my goodness. Okay. I need a sip of water before I get emotional again. I
You
know
got
I've
my
said,
eyes watering.
it's a gift, Joan. You gave us such an amazing gift. And I think that as more people get to experience, they will understand why, there are so many readers in your group and other groups that are like, oh my God, the Black series, you got to read it. You got to read it. It's amazing. It's incredible. It is all that we have said it to be. It is not hyperbole. We are not gassing up Joan. We are not overstating
Absolutely.
the impact of this book. It's absolutely tremendous. So I just wanted to say that, HP, to start, because I'm mindful that there are people who don't necessarily have context for the series, whereas the folks who do are probably just nodding their head in agreement as they listen. Right? They're like, yes, Adrian, yes. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that, just really quick before we go into the Fanny question, but I think it's also a good segue into the Fanny question, is that the book is fearless on the series is fearless on so many levels. But I think that one of the levels, to the point that you're making, Adrian, that really highlights the fearlessness in it, literally the absence of fear. So in the fort, at the very end, when they find out that the enslaved Africans are now free, or enslaved Americans, some of them are free, that all of the women start, and the men too, start saying like, well, I ain't really thought about it in a little while, because you know what I'm saying?
You're right.
I'm safe. And
Right.
so to imagine being Molly, or being Anna, or being Sunday, or being Lou, or being, any of the 22, and anybody else, including, is it Vernon, that has 3 wives and none of them?
EJ.
Well, no, but I mean, remember when they were accounting for everyone, and
Right,
they said,
right.
we got one man that's got 3 women, and we ain't really sure. But even that,
that's
like,
right.
To live on the fort is to live genuinely free, because you live with the absence of fear.
Yeah.
And it is Black and the 22 and the women of the 22 that shoulder a lot of that burden, in terms of, okay, we still have to be vigilant. We still have to have relationships into the broader community, which is why the fort is my second favorite installment. But it really is to write the way you've written about what you've written about, and then in some of the various stories and plot points, it is a fearless work of art that is just like amazing to me, which is why I'm like, this is it. Like, if you're not reading Joan Vassar, are you really reading? It's weird that you would be reading but not be reading Joan Vassar, because it is a masterclass in so many things. So to speak to that fearless, there is a scene in Albert's book. James runs across a woman named Fanny. You assume that he's going to come back for her, and that he's going to bring her to the fort, and they're going to live happily ever after. We finish Albert's book without James and Fanny having another moment together. In the beginning of James's book, James encounters Fanny, and things go horribly wrong. And it was the kind of way that you come into a book and you realize that the author is not playing with you. They have not thought about your feelings. They are not considering your well-being. They just writing whatever they want to write. So Adrian, I will let you pick up the baton and then tell us where we end up with Fanny, and why it's a question that so many readers have.
Well, yes. And I want to touch on, because words are important, right? Because you said the reader assumes. No, let's put the accountability on Miss Vassar where it belongs, because she set the scene such that as you are reading, James and Fanny have this interaction. James is like, come with me. And Fanny says, I can't leave my mother. And we learn her mother is very ill. And Fanny doesn't want to leave her behind. And I think we can all understand not wanting to leave your sick mother behind. On the other hand, she was being offered freedom, right? And so that was not, and I think as a reader, we have the luxury of reading and like, girl, go get you some freedom. The flip side of that is, I think for most of us, it would be a heart-wrenching decision to leave behind your mother, knowing that she doesn't have long for this world. And so the seed is planted there because one of the things that we've seen Black, and at this point, I think it's still just the 18. One of the things we've seen them do is they go back and get people, right? And so people don't necessarily get left behind, right? If they have made a somewhat of a commitment, they try to go back and get people. And so you definitely leave Albert's book hopeful, right? Hopeful, optimistic that James will maybe be able to go back and get Fanny, and they'll be able to have their happily ever after. And then Joan starts off emancipating James. And not only has Fanny gotten off the plantation, which is a feat in and of itself, right? But Fanny done made it all the way from the South to Canada. She done crossed state lines, international lines, and she done made her way.
Listen at this, Joan. Listen at this,
to Canada. And she has found the town, right? Which Joan was also very interesting, right? That she managed to, because that's a question that they have, like, how did she get all the way here? How did she know to get here? And because James is intoxicated and dealing with some things, and when he encounters Fanny, unfortunately, he mistakes her for someone that might mean him harm. And he ends up killing Fanny.
Listen at this, Joan. I did not. I'm sorry. I didn't bring you on here for her to cut up.
No. Joan got to be held accountable. Okay, Joan got to be held accountable. And it's just to start the book that way. I was like, baby, I put the book down. I said, "Ooh, Joan is taking no prisoners. She don't care about my emotions, my fragile mental state. Joan about to have me on the floor, sobbing, curled in a ball, unable to work." But that was a hell of a way to be like, yeah, this ain't gonna be what you think it's gonna be. How about that? And I remember your lack of compassion, Joan, when I was on the phone with you sobbing about it. And you were like, yeah, well. So, Joan, why don't you go on? Because I understand that this is a bit of an exclusive. Why don't you go on and share with folks why you decided to murder poor Fanny in cold blood the way that you did?
Well, let me say this to you. The average person who reads a lot will read maybe 5 good books. And if they've read 20 books, 15 of them may be mediocre. You're striving for the 5 as an author. That is what you're striving for, because people who read all the time think, I read this book, but I haven't been able to find anything else like it. So you're striving for the 5. That is always the way. Here's what I do know. I write with the intention to entertain people who read a lot. And that means people who read more than me, right? And when you're doing that, people come to the book saying, this is probably going to be this is probably going to be that. And you're never going to truly outthink everybody. But the goal is to be able to step away from what they think is going to happen, that the reader can't just figure it out from the title, from the back of the book. Because you have people that look at the book and they say, okay, well, this is what this is going to be about. This is my favorite trope. So I was not looking for a trope, not in a book that is chronicling Black life during this time. So that was one thing. And so when you come out of book 2, you do think, okay, James is with this, met this young lady. He's asking her to come. She's refusing. And he has stepped away from the mission to acknowledge that she's attractive and that he may want her, But in the next scene, he's shot in the face So he has two instances during this, during book two, where he has not focused on the mission the way he should. It caused him to be shot in the face, it slowed them down, all of those things. And so he's dealing with quite a few things on his head. But the reader steps out of this book, and the reader says to themselves, oh my God, we're going to get a book where we're going to watch him nurse her back to health. We're going to watch their relationship grow. And while that was in my mind, I just was thinking that could be part of the story. But I am a software analyst by day. I work full time. People ask me, when will you quit your job so you can write full time? I write full time and I work full time. I don't write part time. So as a result, I work all the time. So with that being said, I was dealing with a customer at work. And, when you're writing, there is a lot of time when you're spending time in your head, just thinking, plotting, scheming through a book. And I had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and a young lady who had just finished book two was in the bathroom at work. A lot of the women at my job read my work, which I so appreciate. And so I'm in the bathroom and she's washing her hands, and I'm racing past her for a stall because I've been drank so much coffee. She sees me and she says, hey, I just finished book two. So I'm trying to get on the toilet, and she's got both her feet under the door. And she's just kind of like, so this is happening. And I just thought, and I said to myself, and she done he done shot Fanny, and this happened, and so I can't wait till he get ready to nurse her. Girl, you done open up this book with a bang. Well, that part, I had stopped the prologue because I put a teaser in every book for the next book. I had stopped the prologue at him being upset about Fanny being shot. And so I really was thinking, where will this go? And so she's telling me, well, and then when he nurses her back together, it's going to be good and blah, blah, blah. So I said, now she has upset the apple cart, because if she's thinking this, how many other readers are thinking this? And so I have to kill Fanny. It can't be what they think. They have to be able to step into the story in the prologue and understand that I'm attempting to entertain you and engage your emotion. So, the way that she plotted it out wasn't what I was thinking, but I was not thinking about killing her. But when she said that, I thought, she at least thought that I wasn't planning on killing her. And so as a result, one of the things I try to do is work a prologue. Prologues are not easy to write. And you can write a really good prologue, but you have to be able to follow through with the rest of the book. So the prologue is meant to say, this is what it's going to be like. And then you have to follow through. And so there was not a way. So I needed you to see that she did not live. And I needed you to hear Black nailing the coffin shut.
That is just, it is brilliant and diabolical at the same time, right? And I remember when you told me that, Joan, and you were like, oh, she thinks she got this all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. But to your point about books that have really been the five, right? That have really just been like, whoo, mind blowing. And you're right? I think that readers, they have those books that absolutely stay with them. And it's not a knock on the other books, right? The other books that they consumed and enjoyed and they moved on. And then there are those books that shook them and stayed with them. And so I respect, and I hear you saying, look, I want to be in the category of the books that shook you, entertained you, stayed with you. And certainly for me, and I know for HP and obviously others, mission accomplished, right? But even down to that, Joan, because arguably, Joan, you might have accomplished that for many of us simply by giving us this story of our ancestors being free, being empowered, free in body, free in mind, building, right? For a number of people, that might have put you in the category of the 5. But then it's things like this, where you're just like, oh God, oh. Emancipating James is my favorite because I felt like there were, between James and obviously Jeremiah, and we'll get into Jeremiah, right? Where you were like actively ripping out our hearts and like toying with it and like squeezing it and be like, don't worry, maybe I'll put it back in your chest. It may still beat when I'm done, but let me just toy with it for a little while. And then you did put it back in our chest, and allowed it to beat again. And I just remember being like, I don't know how much more of this I can take, as I absolutely devoured and couldn't step away and couldn't pick up anything else, had to just get through and have listened to the series over and over, right?
Wow.
But it's things like that, Joan, of you being like, I don't want them to get what they believe they've already figured out. Right. Because I certainly, HP, was that your experience that at the end you thought, because I certainly thought the same thing, that James and Fanny were going to nurse each other and it was going to be this, somehow he was going to get better, I should say. And they were going to be together and it was going to be them healing physically, emotionally, mentally together. So the rug was absolutely pulled out from under me when she just dies. And I was just like, oh my God, this poor man, he done been face, and now he done killed this girl, and Lord have mercy.
I did think it was coming, but at the same time, I think it hit me hard, make no mistake, because I'm sure I messaged Joan at least with a voice note and was like, why would you do this to me? But I think on the flip side of that, because James is where we get Jeremiah, I was okay because I also saw Jeremiah coming back. And so for him to play so heavily in Emancipate James, and their conflict is interesting, and there's a little bit of freeing of emotional wounds and entanglements even between the two of them. It's with little Otis, aka little Jeremiah. But so yes. I think it hit me, but by the time I finished it, I was okay. I'm okay until I read it again.
But I agree.
By the time I finished the book, I was okay because we got such richness with Jeremiah and Callie, who is the real MVP. Yes. I don't care what nobody say.
Deep breath, settle down, settle down, settle down.
I don't do no Callie slander on the podcast. But yeah, so I think it was okay by the end. But in the beginning, I was like, what is this foolishness?
Yes.
Why would anybody treat people like this?
Right. She's a horrible person. Why would she do this? Yeah. But I agree with you that journey is such that by the end, you're just kind of like, Lord, it hurt like son of a something.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. And so Joan, sure. I appreciate that. And I thank you. It's not what I would have chosen for myself, but sometimes we need stuff, right, that we don't choose to bring out the best in us and or to make it a richer experience. And you definitely gave us that, starting off by ripping our hearts out and stomping on and pouring salt and then setting it on fire. Yeah.
All right. Well, so HP? We got some questions from the group. We can move into some favorite scenes and just other questions that we have. So this is, I'm gonna start with let me start at the top. So one question is, does Black know that Big Mama is as savage as he is? Because she ended up killing through a poison biscuit, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Someone who knew that Nat the second was still alive, and she was terrified of keeping the secret. So Big Mama said, no, I'm gonna fix you. Listen, why don't you have this biscuit? and then we don't have a problem anymore. Does Black know that happened?
No.
Do you think he would believe it?
I think if you go back to book 1, when she's having a discussion with him about what needs to be done with Jacob, if you encounter him, he was shocked about how much she talked, what she had to say. So I think he would believe it, but he would also be shocked.
Yeah, I can see that. Because
I don't think Elbert would be shocked.
No, you're right about that. I think Elbert will be very clear. Like, no, I understand who she is. It's y'all that's confused.
And in fairness, right? Because what was it, May? I'm wondering if the woman's name
It's
was
May.
May. Okay.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You know, because May wasn't just, there were two, right? There's May and the other woman. The other woman is kind of like, "Ooh, it's May that harps on, I am not getting myself killed for this
Right,
child, right?
right, right,
If May had maybe just like wrung her hands a little bit, and be like, oh, girl, okay. I suspect Big Mama would have left her alone, but she kept
right,
talking and she kept harping. And it was like, girl,
right,
like, Paul, we gonna have to take
right,
care of this. So I kind of feel also like if he learned it, Joan, at a certain point, it'd be like, well, yeah, right, because May wouldn't shut up, right? May
right,
just kept
right,
hopping. May, made it clear that she was a liability, and it was going to be May or Black.
right,
I mean, that was the choice, right? That was
right,
clearly the choice.
right. And so he would start out, if it were book one, he would start out shocked, but by book five, no. But Elbert wouldn't have been shocked even in book one.
I mean, what you got to do,
Yeah. And I think it's important too that when I sat down, two things, and I think readers know this, that this book is actually Black. I actually sat down to write it in 2000. So Black is actually 22 years old this year. Um, and just carried the manuscript from apartment to apartment. And in 2014 is when I said, okay, I'm never going to get the opportunity to tell this story because no one is interested in it. And so I'm going to have to try to do this by self publishing. And then if I fail, it'll just be what it is. One of the things that this series, and it's also why I'm really not interested in writing another book in the series. Um, I've been educated in this country. And so a lot of things, about being Black and about Black contribution to this country were minimized in my life. And so these characters represent my becoming Blacker as I studied, because this series was real homework. Like, I didn't know that George Washington Carver's daughter married Frederick Douglass's grandson. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was such things as a 20 nigger rule, where if a slave owner has 20 slaves, that he does not in fact have to participate in the Civil War. Like, I didn't know that Manhattan Island attempted to succeed with the South so that cotton could continue to be exported from the docks of Manhattan. I didn't know these things. I didn't know that Wells Fargo decided to post their manifests of slaves. So this series was enlightening for me for so many reasons. Black represented for me Black excellence. Elbert, for me, represented Black masculinity. This country sees full grown Black masculinity as criminal. So Elbert's story was strictly for you to see that he was unapologetic in his manhood, that it was shakable because of the circumstance. And he was saying, I'm going to do what I can to maintain my maleness, my manness, and this is what I have to offer. And so I attempted to tell that story as a tribute to Black men. So the book two is really, I wrote it with Black men in mind, Black male readers in mind. And then James represents emotional freedom, right? And then Anthony represents being unshackled from boyhood, the story itself. And when I say boyhood, I don't really mean being young. I mean being Black and not being treated as a grown man. And so this series was heavy for me to write. And it is, listen, when people, so this makes me smile. And I think Adrian said this when we first got started, telling a story in the 1860s, where Black people really just don't want to visit, right? They don't want to visit Gone with the Wind, and I don't blame you, right? And I think it's because of that is the reason why I was not really a person to promote the work, because most people who saw me writing in this particular period were not interested in the work. I have family members who have not read it. I have family members who don't really understand that I've developed this kind of following. I have some family members, they say the girl writing a book, say she done wrote several of them. I purchased them to be supportive, you know. So I have that.
Why do you sound like my
going.
uncles?
I'm just telling you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. You would be surprised. I have more in the group. I have about 20 cousins in the group, and periodically they'll go to my inbox and be like, so this your group? So you wrote some books? And I have people who I meet every day who don't know I write because, you know, you're not a reader and I'm not an Avon seller. So I'm not trying to sell you anything, because as an independent artist, that's how people treat you. So you just kind of move along in that space. But one of the things that I think is important is people say, how do you go back to that space and tell anything that could be slightly romantic or anything? And here's how it's done. So that anybody listening who thinks this is more difficult than it is, it took me time to figure it out. So I'm going to tell you the secret. When you get up every day as a Black person, you're not really living much different than 1860, let's be honest, and you're making it. So I did say this to a group on Clubhouse. I want Honesty and Adrian to just kind of close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to envision yourself as a writer 100 years from now. And you're going to write about this time. And you're going to tell a story that you think is good, but people are not going to read because they're not going to want to visit this time. They don't want to read about George Floyd being murdered on TV. They don't want to read about Breonna Taylor. They don't want to read about police brutality against Black men unprovoked. They don't want to read about Ahmaud Arbery, because this time that we live in is nasty. You feel it's better than 1860, but a writer 100 years from now is going to be ashamed of what we're living in right now. And that's how it gets done. You don't, I don't look down on the previous time, because we're not really living different. When the young man in January 2022 is delivering packages for FedEx and is being shot at in Mississippi. So this is how it's done. You look at the time and you set up the right conditions in the book. Your characters may not be real, right? But the conditions are real.
So what makes you reluctant to go back?
What makes me reluctant to go back to the series? The characters are all smarter than me. And that's a burden to write. Shit, Black is organized. You should see my room. I got little pieces of paper folded up all over the damn place and don't remember why I wrote that down. But when you're writing a character like Black, that's unacceptable. So you have to think through every little thing. You have to adhere to who he is from book 1 to book 5.
And that is not something you want to do going forward. But do you feel like they have more to say that you're just not willing to tell? Or do you feel like the story is complete?
I don't feel like the story is complete. I mean, I could tell this story all the way up to George Floyd being killed. It's just the Black experience.
Well, I think that's what we get from Troy too.
It's how Troy came about, and unfortunately Francine. He is a breakdown of Jeremiah, not Black.
Yeah, it's very clear he's Jeremiah and not Black. He is too not volatile is not the right word, but he definitely is not as calculated as Black. He is smart. He is calculated, but I think it's a little bit different. Jeremiah's frustration, as Jeremiah understands who he is, his frustration comes through.
Right, but the other piece to it is that Troy is not as calculated because somewhere. Blackness has been lost between Black men and Black women. We've been set on each other, and we are in this time treated as two separate races on purpose. And so what you see in Troy is him trying to figure it out. And that's why it's Black lostness. You're trying to figure out what it means to be Black, where you can't deliver a damn package without being shot at. So I think when I wrote this series, I had to remember that shit, I'm not living different now,
Mhm.
even if I'm living different.
So a way to kind of connect that, which is sort of a through line across all the books, especially when you think about Troy and this idea of justice and equality. So I can't remember who, but I'm gonna look in Facebook in just a second to get that person's name. But another question that they asked was that they saw in a review that some people didn't like that Black and Elbert got justice, but James didn't get his justice from Jeremiah. And so their question is, at what point did you realize saving Jeremiah would be a benefit to the overall series?
So one of the things that I did in writing book 3, because book 3 was really supposed to be the last book. So that's the real reason why the book was as it was, written in that style. Excuse me. But what I will say to you is I had decided not to kill Jeremiah. I was almost 15, 14 chapters in. It wasn't a conscious thought, right? And I really gave no thought process about him in terms of whether I would keep or kill him. And I did it that way so that the reader wouldn't figure it out. I left myself in this space where I wasn't sure. So here's something that maybe readers do not know. Jeremiah was meant to die. He was. That was my original goal. But still, I could not make that decision. So what I did was left myself in limbo and just write and let the character decide that. A writer will understand what I mean by that, right? So what I did was I worked out 2 endings to the book. The first ending, I would think, was that James and Black would get to the Hunter plantation and Jeremiah would be taken to the woodshed where his head would be blown off by James. And EJ as well would have been killed. And so what happened was, as I worked through the book, I realized I had to come with a second ending. And it's the one that y'all got, right? And so I had this other ending that ended up being, for book 4, Liam's demise.
Okay, but that was supposed to be Jeremiah.
Yes, and Callie was not supposed to survive. It was still kind of up in the air whether she was going to live or not. So originally, her sex scene with Jeremiah was that once he laid her across the table, once he figured out that he could not control the situation, that he could not get her to bend, that he could not outthink her, that while she laid on the table expecting something different from him, that he walked up to the top of the table and twisted her neck till it was broke.
Lord have mercy.
So that was really the original scene. And I believe that is when it was chapter 6. And so there was still another 8 chapters before I could figure out, are you going to kill him or let him live? And I did let him live because he enhanced Callie's thought process. And a lot of people don't realize she understood that he was considered a house nigga because she was.
Mm-hmm.
And people miss that. That is what she was, because her hardest job was writing correspondence.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so she saw that in him. And while she had to fight to remove that from herself, she didn't like it in him. She never had to say that. So when he says, "Do you know who I am?" She, I know exactly
who you are.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So it was Demetrius that asked those questions, and then Kecia, I don't know how to say it. She asked she asked the Fanny question. But so that's interesting to me because Jeremiah and Callie and Morgan and Simon are my favorite couples in the series. That's like, I love Anna and Albert, but I really want a menage. I want a poly relationship between Black, Albert, and Sunday. So I can't fully be happy for Anna and Albert because
oh God.
but my favorite 2 couples, along with of course Molly and Lou, but I am Molly, so obviously that would be my favorite couple.
Lord.
But Lou and I are married to each other. But it's interesting to me because Jeremiah and Callie stand out for me even more than Black and Sunday. So I'm very surprised that we're meeting the second iteration of their end, because I can't imagine the series without them.
Well,
in the
and I'm
form that we got them.
well, and the truth is, at some point in my mind, Jeremiah said, "Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't realize that this happens, but the characters do say stuff to you. When you introduce a new character, it's kind of like the character is kind of like talking to a person on the phone that you meet for the first time. It's awkward. You don't know what to do with them. They don't know what to do
Mm-hmm.
with you, and
Right.
that happens with a character until you get you understand them and they understand you. And what happens, like, there's a scene, and I think I told you this, honesty. There's a scene in book 5 where they're taking Black into this room to show him this dead man in a coffin. And so they lift it up, and Black is like, "Oh, okay, so why are y'all showing me?" And they saying, "Well, look, it's the ambassador." And Black is saying, "Well, that's not the ambassador." And they're like, "You sure?" And it's back and forth. But I got up that morning at 4 o'clock in the morning to get ready to do my writing session. And, you know, what happens is I come downstairs and I find myself seated, standing on the porch behind Elbert. And it's Elbert, Black, and James. And Elbert says to Black, "You know who's in the coffin, don't you?" And Black just doesn't answer. So I step out because I'm trying to see Black's face, kind of dark, you know. So I'm trying to see what he thinks. And when he doesn't answer, I ask, "Black, do you know who's in the coffin?" And Black says, "Look, if you don't get your ass in this cabin and write down who the hell's in the coffin so I could tell them, are you seriously out here asking?" So this is this is where I'm at, you know. So they really do have stuff to say, right? But what I will say is the other piece to this series is you end up feeling like, I love America, right? But you feel like you're in a bad relationship with a lover who treats you poorly and keeps making promises that they're going to make change, but they never do.
Yes.
And writing this series makes you constantly feel like, so you said you wasn't going to do that to me no more, but here we are.
Mm, mm.
And so that the series kind of is way heavier to write than people think, especially if you're trying to be
I can see
authentic.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Especially
I,
if you're
I can
trying
see
to
that
be
though, Joan. I
authentic.
mean,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, because you get into stuff like we as readers get to just enjoy what you've given us, but with you saying it as I sit here and I listen to you, it is not a leap of the imagination to see that this would be quite heavy for you to write. And it makes me think of, for example, actors and actresses, right, who have played like very dark roles. And I think one of the more famous ones that comes to mind is Heath Ledger, as he was, preparing for the Joker, right? And he
Right,
had been very upfront about the toll that getting into that state of mind took on him mentally and emotionally. And then the poor man, ended up overdosing on, I think it was pain and sleep medication, right?
right,
And so but then won, right, how many awards posthumously for that portrayal because it was so authentic, right?
yes,
And we as readers, as watchers, we're just there to consume, right?
right,
As I think about the journey you take us on, for as uplifting as it is, you tackle very heavy subjects. These folks go through some things, right?
yeah,
So and it's heavy just experiencing it as the person who has the option to hit play and listen to Jacoby take us through it, or crack open the book and scroll through and then go back to washing some dishes or playing with my son or doing
right,
this or that,
right.
right? So but you, as the writer who put all of this together, I can't imagine how you live with that day in, day out, because I also understand from you, from other authors, that like when something comes to you, right, a scene or a moment or whatever, like you got to get it down, you get it off your chest, and characters nagging you and talking in your ear, you're trying to fry your pork chops, and the
Right.
characters over your shoulder talking about whatever they're talking about. And here you gave us 5 books of this.
Yes.
You know,
And
as
I
much as I want more, I'm not going to stop wanting more, Joan. Let's be clear. But I hear you when you talk about the lift, right? It clearly is a labor of love for you, but we should not get it twisted and think, oh, you just sat down and the words just flowed, and then you just got up and went on about your business. That there was a
No,
load that you carried in
you're
putting this together.
submerged.
Yeah.
Yes, you're submerged in the characters, who they
Mm-hmm.
are. And I think honesty will attest to this, that readers think that we just write the character. But the truth of the matter is that authors are not really different from narrators, except that the narrator is narrating the work. You are all the characters yourself. It doesn't just happen. You are the character. You are the person who has said, I don't care about that. And you are the person who has to be like, oh my God, he just said he don't care about it. And so you have to, so there is this moment where you're acting out everything in your head to get it on paper. For me, a lot of people don't realize this. When I write, even when I get it on the page, it always falls short from what's in my head. It
Me
is
too.
never as good as what's in my head. So there's that. And when I moved to book 5, I had no choice but to handle the fort in the fashion that I did, because I needed to show the people growing in their liberty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that was the fort is it's all about expansion and enlarging territory,
Right,
but still keeping the mission in mind, which is retaining one's freedom.
right,
and and then recognizing it, and we see this all along, of course, that all skin folk ain't kinfolk, but I think that becomes especially important in the fort, because as we are moving between these towns and making the world bigger for ourselves, we really, 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 really got to be careful about who's in and who's out, who knows too much, which is why it was always interesting to me, even outside of book 5, but especially in book 5, when the 22 ride into town and people are like, well, what you know what I'm saying?
right.
Everybody got questions. And sometimes there's a man or a woman, but usually a man that's trying to figure it out, but quickly realizes, just like Schultz did in book 1, that you ain't got no choices. Okay. So
You ain't got no,
put your
as
gun down.
Elvis said, you ain't got no wins.
Right.
Yeah,
That's it. That's
yeah,
the word. You
yeah.
ain't got no wins. You got
No
choices, but
wins.
you ain't got wins.
No,
That
and so, and I
yeah.
think you're right, because when I had a lot of people contact me and say, and say, I can't believe that, there's a town called Niggerville. I said, well, for the purpose of this book, there's a town called Niggerville, but I think you need to Google, because all around this country there are Niggervilles,
Mm-hmm.
Nigger Hollows,
Mm-hmm.
Nigger Creeks, Nigger Road, Nigger Street, all around the country. Some of them are just being changed as late as 2013.
Yep. Yes, indeed. It is
It's
a
now
real thing.
see that leads, and I know that this is, forgive me because this is gonna be a question, Joan. I believe I'm sure you've answered before, because what was the first seed that planted the idea of Black? I'm sure you've answered it, but I don't know that I've heard that. And I know when you and I spoke, I was too deep into my feelings and emotions to like ask such a preliminary question. But what was that first seed? 2000 or before, right? Because 2000 you said you started writing Black, but I don't know if maybe the seed was planted before 2000. But do you remember what that first seed was?
The first seed was that I enjoyed historical fiction,
Okay.
but white America tends to think that historical fiction in books belongs to them.
Yes, like everything else.
And so so I wanted to do historical fiction. And I, at the time, was married to a man who grew up in West Africa. So this was interesting to live with someone for 18 years who had a different experience growing up, understood Black government. And I remember what was kind of life changing for me, between me and him, is that one day we were laying in the bed watching TV. And I remember saying to him, do you think we'll ever get a Black president? And he said, I never saw a white one till I came here.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't that something?
And so it was enlightening. It started me on a path. But what happened was when I originally wrote this book, um, I originally called it Generation, and felt like that it, when I went back to it, I felt like it wasn't right. But what happened was one day I was sitting on the couch. This is in 2014. And I remember thinking, maybe what the problem is I need a true historical figure to anchor the story, and one that gets me away from Gone with the Wind. And Nat Turner became that person. And you need to understand that I was probably 39 when I heard of Nat Turner for the first time, being educated in this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So he stuck with me. And so I said, I think I'm going to make him Black's father. And I think that will make the difference of what my mission is for this character. And so that was how it got started. But it started with my ex-husband saying to me, I never saw a white president until I moved here.
So
What?
Joan, so I'm clear. I'm sorry, HP.
No, go ahead.
So I'm clear. And now as you say this, right, because Blacks, you can see how Black's identity is there, the tie between him being his father's son. And yet, as you now give us the timeline, the way that you did it, right, he didn't have to be Nat Turner's son. So it almost, like in my mind, I'm sitting here and I'm like, so you had Black story, and then you went back, Joan, and added that the first scene with Nat hanging and all of that, or
Yes,
okay,
yes.
okay,
That's
wow,
exactly what happened. And
okay,
what I did was, I felt like that would be the right way to go, and then it would give Black something authentic for the reader to say, "Huh, I can't believe she did that." So where's she going with that? Um, and as I pressed on through the books, you should know that the books were never meant to be a series. I was just attempting to try my hand at historical fiction and say, "Hey, I've done it." And but what happened was I had gotten involved with this vanity press, iUniverse, and the lady there said, "Okay, we get for every 100 books we get, only 15 of them are really good, even though we're going to publish them all because we're self-published." She said, "So you've put an epilogue in this book that breaks down these characters, and I'm going to give you my opinion. You need to tear the epilogue out, and you need to write the stories that go with this epilogue." And that's
Interesting.
how I ended up with Elbert.
Hmm.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite book of the five?
I would think it's probably the fort. And and
Hmm.
and I can't tell you, I feel like it's the fort because it was a combination of 7 years of work. Um, but it was the growth of Black, the thought process of Black, and what the people went, and him understanding that he needed to, uncage the people, to emancipate the people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Is
And
he your favorite character?
is Black. I think Black is a given, but you should also know that when I originally wrote Black, um, and without any thought process of writing any other books, Black was actually supposed to be killed in book one, and Sunday was supposed to end up with Elbert while pregnant by
Hmm.
Black. And
Lord
he
have
was supposed to
mercy.
come to, yeah, he was supposed to come to power. What happened was, is my test reader said, "I see where you're going with this, and you could try
Mm.
it, and you're gonna be minus a test reader." Uh, and because I hadn't, it was me trying my hand. And what happened was, I began to, so when Elbert came into the book, I remember being at work and thinking, I cannot function. This character won't stop. And
Hmm.
so I got home and went through the scenes and thought about him and how things would be. And I meant to scare the reader with Elbert because they didn't know what his intentions was, but with him, I did. And so so when I got to book two, I said, I'm gonna give a prologue and see how it makes me feel. And if I don't feel like going any further, I won't. And so and so I did. But what happened was somewhere along the line, I decided not to kill Black. And but once I moved on to the new book, I said, I'm going to try to do something that a lot of authors don't do. I'm going to continuously let him be a second protagonist with every other protagonist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why? And I don't know if you're gonna answer this, and I can't remember if you've answered it before, but I can tell you why I love her, Callie, and I can tell you why I love Sunday and Morgan / Letty. And not that there's anything wrong with not loving them, but I'm wondering where they came from for you, and which side of those two or another side do you fall in when it comes to your affinity or lack thereof for Callie and or Sunday?
Callie, Sunday, Morgan, the women of the fort don't necessarily represent who I am. They represent Black women in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be as great as they are, and I think I fall short. I was attempting to show Black women at their very best at what they do, constantly clean up, figure out, close the gap,
Mm-hmm.
fix. We're fixers. And so Callie, which is a little disheartening, represents a more modern thinking woman. And so it's a little disheartening when readers come to the story and tell me, come to the page and tell me that Callie is spoiled. I'm like, okay, this character came into the book chained to 6 men, and she's being purchased by a Black man who doesn't realize he's a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't get any more sorrier than that. And she's been liquidated after living as a house nigga.
Right.
And so I think Callie represents that. And I think that it is kind of disheartening when readers only think about she's trying to sleep with Black. I'm like, there's so much more going on here. And I think it speaks to a bit of who we are as women.
And I never got that, and maybe I missed the subtext.
I didn't get that either.
Yeah, everything except for the fort was out when I started reading last August, September, somewhere in there, maybe October. No, it was last August, September when I started reading. The fort came out in October. I never got that she was trying to sleep with Black. I understood that she was always concerned about him changing his mind because she understood that he was the one with the power.
Yes.
And that her primary motivation was to maintain the family that fell in her lap that she so desperately wanted.
Which is what Black women do. So that's why it's disheartening. And the other piece to it is it's disheartening for this reason too. I get a lot of, I'm just going to be brutally honest here. I get a lot of inboxes with discussions about, Callie and blah, blah, blah. And it is so funny because I don't really care whether you like the character, but if you come to me and you ask me, I'm going to tell you the intent of the character. That's why you're seeing me. So it is kind of, so when I had only written Black, I got a lot of inboxes about how Sunday was stupid compared to him, and she was not an equal partner. We don't really like her. I actually had one woman say to me, Sunday's breath stinks and her teeth are bad. And I haven't written that anywhere.
I'm like, what?
What in the world?
So this
okay.
So I mean, you can't, what are you gonna explain to that? So
right.
when Anna came, they didn't like Anna because she was weak and wouldn't leave the house. They didn't like her. And then when Callie came, they didn't like her because there was an attraction between her and Black. So and I had people who inboxed me, they absolutely did not like, trying to think which character that was. I got an inbox about.
Oh, I thought she was going to say Nettie, EJ, and
well, that goes without saying.
Right.
That goes without saying. One woman sent me a message that said, she sent me a message that said, I don't understand why you made Nettie a side chick.
Who said she was a side chick? He loved
Well,
her first.
Well, yeah, I think, Joan, though, and you and HP, tell me if you disagree. It's reflective of, to your point, of the baggage that readers bring to the table.
You
when
can
they
only
read the
bring
work.
yourself to a
Exactly.
situation,
Right.
and
Right.
so they
Exactly.
bring themselves to the book, and it is what it is. So
Yeah.
I had to inbox the reader back, and I had to say, this is 1860. White women don't get the right to vote for another 80 years.
Right.
So what do you mean by side chick? I even saw in one of the spoiler rooms that the woman wrote, I couldn't be Nettie and leave my cabin so he could talk to his wife. And I actually went in there and said, okay, he owns the clothes they wear.
Right.
He owns both women, the cabin, and the land they live on. I'm just trying to understand. Like, you need to get in context with the time.
Because it was really Suzanne recognizing that her station was no different than Nettie.
Right.
Like, just because you are a white woman doesn't mean that you have any more say or control. He done told your mama to kiss his ass and that she can't have his brother. It's like, he is the one with the power in all things. And so even though Suzanne and Nettie look different, they ain't really all that different.
Well, they're not different in his eyes.
Right.
And
exactly.
What EJ represented is white men practicing white supremacy while partaking in Black love. That's what he represents.
Right.
And
Which
when
happens
I say
all
Black
the time.
Love, I do not just mean Nettie. I mean even his love for Jeremiah.
Yes.
He is partaking in Black family, Black love as it exists as a whole. And so, but by the same token, he's living this life that is not even considered white supremacy back then. This is the way that it is.
The way it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And so, but what I'm to say is he represents Strom Thurmond. You in this life, you in this life, and you nigger calling while putting the Black daughter through college.
Right.
So
and saw no contradiction, no.
I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that has been and so it that has been disheartening that that readers don't. And I mean, so on the one hand, you didn't like Sunday because, and I refuse to change Sunday's speech pattern. My grandmother was from Mississippi, right? Not formally educated, but the smartest person I knew. My grandmother lived in New York a good 60 years, and her speech never changed. And her speech pattern, sounding like she was from Mississippi, the words, all of that never changed, even though we grew up around her, going to school, graduating high school, college, those things never changed. So I was not going to change Sunday's speech, and I was not going to allow Black to correct this because he understood the intelligence, right? And so when we got to Anna, she was weak. So I said, okay, I'm gonna make a strong character, strong female. They didn't like her either. So, I mean, so you have, and not to say that there are not people who don't like Callie, but if I had to say what was disheartening, it was Black women not realizing that the modernness of her thought, the ability to endure, to not be bullied by him, to escape rape, to figure out that he needs love, to all of those things. That was a little disheartening. But again, you don't have to like the character, but you should at least understand what you don't like. Right. And so,
Joan, what I find interesting is because I feel like comments I've seen, and obviously you see way more than we do, right? As the author, I feel like comments I've seen, it always seemed to be disliking Callie in the context of how she interacts and engages with Black, right? And people taking issue where it's like, sis, you free. Right. Now I understand you thought he was going to kill your man. But we're past that now. So get over it. Number one. And two,
but
this is the man that set you.
Saying?
I get you. I'm saying is I feel like those comments.
Get over what though? Get over what? Being a slave? I mean, this is her whole life. She's been free a few months.
No. I'm saying people holding on to, people having a reaction to the fact that Callie did not let it all go and just be like, Black, oh, thank you so much. Thank you for not killing him, and thank you for setting me free. Like almost as if she wasn't entitled to continue to have these conflicting emotions, right? And she said, look, I had dreamed about you. I've heard of the name Black. I dreamed of being set free. And yet the context in which she gets set free is she's afraid they're going to kill the man that she loves and the father of her child. And it's
which is the plight of Black women even today.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Black women are constantly afraid for their sons, their brothers. And so this doesn't even make sense. And here's another thing. When readers say she becomes friends with Sunday, but she wants Black, you need to understand that she wanted Black from book 3. And it's there in the text. But the reader gets to book 4 and thinks this is a new thing because of Sunday. It is not. It is not, because she didn't say, I dreamed of being free. She said, I dreamed you would save me.
Yes.
And that's a big difference. Why? Because you're a slave. Why don't you just dream to free? No, I dreamed Black would save. But because he's already idolized among the slaves.
Right.
Yeah.
This is something that the reader needs to see and see
it in
context.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. And so there's that. But what is also interesting is that he has an attraction for her.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it in book 3, not book 4. In book 3, he says, I don't really like her. That is the key. He has gone nowhere through any book disliking a woman.
Mm-hmm.
He don't like her. And that's because he's attracted to her.
Right.
And the readers, as always, when we find ourselves in these situations, it's the woman's fault.
Okay, so this is an interesting segue. Why Camille in book 1?
Why did he deal with Camille in book 1?
Why does he go to her instead of coming straight back to Sunday? I mean, we see why, we know why, but I'm wondering, like, that was such a moment for me. And I sent the series to my mom. I ain't hardly tell her nothing about it. She called me at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning talking about Camille, because I was like, yeah, just go on and read this. Okay. It's interesting. Just read it. And she lit my phone up. But Camille was such a moment to me because, and he learns it later, and he learns it with Otis, because, when he comes back, Otis is thrilled to tell him that he's in trouble. But
right.
It was to me like a moment of maybe immaturity. And we see on the page that he's grappling with his feelings with her. He's trying to figure it out, but it just seems, and maybe I'm thinking in retrospect, having read all 5 books, but it just seemed like such a moment of immaturity to me, that it was just kind of like, well, you smarter than, you know what I mean? Like, at least don't do it where she gonna know. And, clearly, or maybe he thought that she wasn't as smart as she was. And that was kind of a light coming on moment for him, because he says as soon as he gets back, she's different.
Right. But I think the reader misses something. His reason for going to Camille is not just for sex. His reason for going to Camille is that he considers himself a fugitive, and he does not want children.
He doesn't want children. I know, but I still didn't like
it. And you know what? And it is interesting that you would say that, because I had an editor who edited book 3, and she was a white editor, and I ended up having to fire her because she kept editing out small points that made me clear that she didn't understand the Black experience while she was good. So I ended up having to pay for the book twice, because there were points that she just deleted and did not edit. So I had to get rid of her. I tried to explain it to her, and then I just realized she just doesn't understand the Black experience. So she doesn't get it. So there's a scene in book 3 that lends back to book 1, to this very scene, right? Because again, book 3 is supposed to be the end of the series. So it's tying back, right? But the scene between him and Ruby, he tells you, I chose her because she could not have children. I did not want that.
Right.
And the woman edited that out and said, this is insensitive. And I said,
Lord.
so you don't really understand not wanting your children to be slaves.
Yeah, she can go. No, my
She
reason
doesn't really,
my reason for
you
not
don't,
liking it is because I understood the pain that it caused Sunday. And so I understood his reasoning, in terms of seeing Sunday when he sees her close to the very beginning of the book and growing and teaching her and really coming to love her through like an official / unofficial courtship. And then saying, if I lay down with this woman, that is all she wrote. And so I can't do it. Like I can't do it. And then sort of going to Camille and realizing it was a mistake. But I think you just wrote so well Sunday's pain, and then Iris and Big Mama coaching her through it, that I still just wanted him to have acted right. And she makes him pay a little bit. Y'all know how I feel about men paying, getting,
but the
when they
truth of
hurt
the
a
matter
woman's feelings,
is,
but still it was a lot.
but I get it. But the truth of the matter is, he wasn't in a relationship with Sunday,
And
and
that's
that's
what
the
that's what
other
Big Mama
thing.
tells her. What you mad
Yes.
about?
Women,
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you something. Women constantly say men are no good, but there is that point where men are saying what they actually think, and
Mhm.
we are hearing what we
Something
want,
else. Yep.
Yes.
hearing
Yes.
something totally different. And
Mhm.
Yes.
then, so in this instance, right? He may not have said it. He took some responsibility, but keep in mind, his goal was not really to just hide from Sunday. His goal was not to sleep with her at all, because he
Right.
figured she was young like him,
Right.
and this is going to end up with children. He had two hangups. One, he's seeing Black women struggle having children in these times, right?
Mhm.
When no one really cares, right? And the other piece to it is, I am who I am among the slaves and even in the white world. So I don't want children.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is a choice that he has a right to make.
Yeah. And I mean, it's Big Mama who tells her, figure out what you're mad at.
Right.
Did you have an understanding, or do you just think you had an understanding?
Right.
And his tenderness to her, being a Sunday construing that into one thing that they never actually talked about. I still just didn't like that he hurt her feelings, and I
Well,
didn't
I
care.
agree.
And I didn't
I
want him
agree.
to hurt her feelings because
Well, and see, I agree with you. And I was like, oh, Black. But I thought to myself also, there has to be grace, because he had feelings for Camille. He cared about Camille, right? I think we can say he cared about Camille,
Right.
cared about Ruby, right? It's not like he was this soulless, emotionless, creature. But I got the impression, he had also never been in a relationship. Well, who got time for romantic relationships, right? I think to your point, where they were not in a relationship, they had not laid out, we are together, we are exclusive, that means you belong to me and I belong to you. He had not done that, right? Because he's busy freeing slaves and building a community. And so while he had women that he cared for, that's different from having been in an actual romantic relationship with them, where there were expectations of, fidelity and things of that nature. So I thought it was both the immaturity and the true definition of immaturity, right? Which is, you just don't have the tools and the experience to navigate yourself appropriately. And it was a reminder that for all of the areas where he was full on man, right? None of us are perfect. And all of us have areas where we have to continue to grow into a better version of ourselves. And I felt like we were seeing that with Sunday, right? And it was an opportunity. And it's interesting, Joan, you say, people were saying, or you got reactions, people calling Sunday dumb and so on and so forth, because again, number one, Sunday was a slave, and she's what, 19, 20?
I envisioned her as being about 22.
Okay. From some reason I had her younger, but maybe it's because I was coming to the table the way Black was, thinking of her as this child. Just like,
Absolutely.
whoa,
Yes.
oh, she ain't a
Yes.
child. But you take us on Sunday's evolution and her. So it's like, even if as a reader you started out thinking she is this bless her heart, she's not very intelligent. I don't see how you can continue to think of her in that way as book one continues on, and certainly as the series continues on, right? Like we see Sunday step into, her role as a woman, Black's woman, his partner in leading this community. Again, coming from being a slave, right?
Well, and
Which,
and just let me just kind of interject something. It's not even also about being a slave. It's about the time. You are taking 2020, 2000, 1999. You're taking that and injecting it into a time that women have no rights and Black men have no rights. Black
right,
women have no rights.
right,
And so you're actually saying to yourself, he cheated, when you're looking at male slaves being forced to produce 12 babies a year. So
Yeah.
you're not submerged in the time, you're
And we get that in
submerged in the
Hazel's
story.
story. Yep.
Yeah, you're submerged in the story. So when I give you a fact that's supposed to make you realize the time, you're going by what you feel in this time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
yes,
him being with Camille really is born out of, while I love her, I don't want children.
mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm,
don't want children. I don't want to think about my children being slaves. I don't even want the technicality of that. What
mm-hmm,
that means is he too is traumatized by
Mm-hmm.
leaving the plantation.
right,
And he is living as a free man, not enjoying freedom.
Right.
And you must understand that for the characters. So what you're saying is true, but this is not an immature move. Yes, Sunday's feelings were hurt, but ultimately he was forced to leave his mother behind, having to think of something that he could figure out for the people so he could get his mother free. So in his mind, I'm a man, I need sex. What I don't need is to leave kids peppered all over the place. So my best bet is to sleep with women who are older, who have not shown themselves to be able to produce.
Mm-hmm.
okay, that I understand that. I guess what I would say though is that it's the for all of how they were getting to know each other, the conversations they were having, and I suspect, the way he went about things triggered many who are reflecting on an experience that they may have had with a man where, to your point, Joan, the man is saying what he's saying, we are hearing something different, right? Because I used to have this argument with my male best friend when we were younger. We've been friends since we were 15, and we would argue about this because I would watch him, have these women going plumb crazy for him. And he would say, but I told her what it was.
And that's all you can. But in this instance, that's not what's happening here.
I
It's
understand.
him.
I
It's
understand.
him figuring it out and saying to himself, "Oh wow, so this could happen." Like, because this took him by surprise. So what
Yes.
he's attempting to do is attempting to go back to what he knows, and that is not having sex where people see it. Because for
Yes.
one thing, you notice in the book, he never goes to the pussy parlor, never,
Right. Right.
because that's his business as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's doing is separating his personal life from the people so that he could lead. This is his thing. So when you look at this, yes, there is all of these things that he's partaking in, and he gets that he's making this mistake. But the reader should also get that the mistake is being made based on the time. Because Black women, when they read this book, tend to think that we have the market cornered on abuse during slavery. But we can come as forward as 1945, or where it was maybe 1920, maybe it's in that era. I have to go check uh, where Black men are being castrated in Germany. So there's abuse, right?
Right.
But we as Black women, we're looking at slave women being abused. We're not looking at that the men get raped,
Mm-hmm.
that the men are forced to produce, all of these things. And what he is in his slave mentality saying, okay, I just don't want to make babies. You see this when he is in his office and he paints a picture of himself. And he literally is standing among finery with barefoot, dirt floor, all of this. This is this is supposed to give the reader a reflection of who he sees himself. So this is really not about that he just went to cheat on Sunday. Yes, he figures it out. He doesn't want her to know this about him. But again, he don't want nobody to know what he does. That's why he doesn't go to the pussy parlor. So when Otis gets home, when he gets home and has this discussion with Otis, what Otis says is, I understand all of the privacy. I understand that you think this is different because she's in tune with you. So this is what's happening. And you need to try to embrace it, right? So that's when he says to Otis, I'm going to do this, right? But if any kids come from me, he said, and Otis says, that's not going to happen. So Otis, nobody ever asked, the character is killed off because it makes Black have to deal with it.
That was one of my questions that I was going to get to. I wanted to know why not a why as in like why, but why, and then choosing that it was Tilly, right? That Otis was killed, out of jealous rage on some, well, if I can't have you, that white woman can't have you either. Because that was another one of those, right? Just another one of those twists, right? That it didn't.
You went to that scene thinking, okay, so she's going to get one of the overseers. And it's important for you to understand that we are complex people, no matter what time we're in. And so she's here being a slave, and she doesn't understand, what do you mean you've chosen her in this? You know what I mean? And he made some real choices, especially for that time, right? And this is life-threatening even to Mary. So we have this situation that's happening. And so when you find out, and I think the reader misses this because I give you the clue when he says, I did this to Mary.
Right.
Yes.
And that's
he had to work,
one. And you find out who. But it would be easy. The other thing is when you're writing, I'm going to tell you something as a writer. This has been my experience because I'm an impatient kind of person. When you write, you don't have room to be impatient, right? You want to get to the scene and you want to fill out, you're trying to get it on paper. And the devil is in the details that makes the scene, the mundane is what makes the scene stand up, right? And so you get to certain scenes and you think, okay, I'm just going to say this, but that doesn't happen. So you have to be able to give the reader something to tie back on, so not springing you into something. So in book 1, he admits to cheating on Mary. But when you get to book 2, you don't think about it anymore. And your goal is when they're riding, you can't wait for them to get the plantation owner, the overseer, and this is you projecting because you're trying to figure me out. Well, that would be, so oftentimes as a writer, you have to really take the hard road so you can truly entertain.
So speaking of the hard road, this might be a good transition to one storyline that was especially sad for me, and I was super conflicted about it. Emma and Alice.
Okay.
So I loved Emma and Anthony, especially in the beginning where they were saying to him, that the pussy parlor is make believe, correct? but Emma's story about Alice, in the beginning, we don't know that what Emma eventually says about Alice, which is that the woman at the orphanage said that she was different and she kind of had a sadness about her. But her back and forth with was it Liam? I can't think of his
Liam.
name. Yeah, Liam,
Yes.
her back and forth with Liam, and then her eventually jumping off the boat. And I think Anthony never tells her exactly. I think he just says, yeah, she was already gone, or we couldn't find her, or something like that. But as I'm as I was reading through, and I see that, number one, right, to your point about same shit different day, like, this is one of the ways that women today get caught in sex trafficking. They look at a advertisement that says one thing, and they show up, and then all of a sudden, it's a completely different show. Which, and of course, this happened at that time and even before. But number one, that they too old, and I'm like, why they gotta leave the orphanage, Lord? Can't they just work and be safe? But anyway, they have to leave the orphanage. They go to get these jobs. It's something completely different, and they're basically held captive, except for Alice is dragged out, and she is made to live with Liam, and Emma just so happens to be saved by Anthony. But her interfacing with Liam and developing some kind of something for him.
Feelings.
Yeah, but it was still like, she had the feelings for him, but she seemed to, at least as I was reading, to be like somewhat conflicted about it.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, when they take her, and she asks, I think, like, if I say so, will you leave him alive, or something like that, or something about that. And then she ends up on the boat with them, inches from safety, but she doesn't know that, right? Because she doesn't. The last time she answered the ad, she ended up somewhere she didn't plan to be, and so she could end up going with these men and end up in another place she doesn't plan to be. But
she knew who Black was.
She did.
Black was a benefactor.
Yes,
Black was a benefactor. He's been taken. So one of the things, let me say this to you. So the orphanage is a real place. It actually
I looked it up.
Existed in 1836. It opened up and it closed in 1945. So that's a real place. So this is part of anchoring the story to real things, so that when you Google, you're more intrigued and you feel informed. And it's a way for me to give you something without saying in a textbook kind of way. So we had an orphanage, right? So that's happened, right? But like, it's important for you to understand that while she might love Liam, she understood who Black was, because Black was a benefactor. So she didn't kill herself because she didn't know where they were going. She killed herself because, one, she left the orphanage and attempted not to become, and this is important that readers see this, that she not become an indentured servant, which is kind of like a slave.
So that's where I was going. So I felt like maybe she knew about, like, obviously she knew about Black, but in terms of trying to figure out what is on the other side of this boat ride. So yeah, I know Black, you make sure we have, like, I'm trying to figure out. Yeah.
So the boat ride was not what was happening. The truth is, she killed herself because she was carrying his child, because she did love him, because she realized, and this is key, you can't kill 9 people because you're having a bad night. This is what he did. He was mad at the mayor. So he took patrons from the whorehouse there in New York, and he murdered them to show the mayor what the hell he was about. So how long will it be before he turns on me? So Alice's thought process was, one, I love him, but he is, and mind you, she witnessed the mayor saying to him, I'm not interested in taking the girl from you because you'll kill her when you're tired of her anyway.
So now I got to go back, because was Liam dead when she jumped?
Yes. See, Joan, I thought it just, because HP, I think I remember saying to you, well, I wonder if Black had said, we're going to take you to Emma. If somebody said, hey, Emma's waiting for you, right? But Joan, I think to your point, she knew who Black was. So she was with people that she didn't necessarily know, but she knew who he was, right? So safety was less of a concern because she knew she was with someone who, one, had supported the orphanage, but two, had a reputation for getting people free. But so that leads me to, once we're also told she had always been sad, I was just like, okay, so for Alice, it was just all too much. It was just all too much. But
I attempt to point out that depression is not a new thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's something,
Right.
and
yeah,
especially in a time like
yeah,
that. So that's one
yeah,
and two. But
yeah.
keep in mind, Black didn't have to tell her that they had Emma. Liam told it, and she knew who they were when Liam
Yeah,
said
she did. That's true.
Emma was stolen. So she was feeling better
Yeah.
that Emma was free and that she
Yes.
hadn't ruined Emma's life as well.
Yes.
So these were things that she knew. The bottom line is she really did love him
Mm,
and did not want to go on without him. And that's when she said, I wasn't a whoreling. But the
mm.
truth is, when Liam said to Black, here's another piece, the message wasn't for you. And Black said, well, I stood up and took notice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Joan, well, let me ask you this. Was there any sort of like with Fanny and clearly not as dramatic, but was that always the plan with Liam and Alice that you were going to have us watch these two go from, you
Yes.
know, captor, okay, and
Yeah.
then develop, then feelings would develop, genuine feelings on both sides, right?
Mhm.
So that we get invested. And then of course,
You
when
see
he
how she
dies,
keeps accusing me, right?
just
She
saying,
like
Joan.
said,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It's brilliantly done, but it is like you got us invested, right? So I was like, okay. And then when he had to die, I was like, all right, well, I understand, because yeah, okay, there's no way around him having to go. But child, when Alice jumped off the boat, I was
Yeah,
like,
it
I
just
just can't
well,
with
I
you know
you.
couldn't
why?
Why
figure.
she
Yeah,
keep
I
You
couldn't
know
figure it
doing
why?
this?
out. And I think
You
the other
you know
side of it
why?
is,
Because I'm showing you who I am as a writer. This is the Fanny situation all
all
over.
over
How could you
again.
It
get to that
sure
book and think
was.
that I was going to try to take her to the fort? Well, what?
Right. I think
But she
that
was
was
pregnant,
child.
Joan.
Well, and I'm gonna tell you something that makes me smile. I had a woman from Texas contact me and say, "So this what we doing first thing in the morning? Day drinking because people want to jump off boats." I couldn't do nothing but smile. I said to myself, because the goal is to get the reader invested. But I
Right.
did say this to y'all early on when we first started recording. There were two endings to book 3, and I used the second ending in book 4.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Child, yes,
So
Lord.
that was the intention from the door.
Goodness
Yes,
gracious. Goodness.
that was the
It's like I got
intention
it.
from.
I got it. And I think it was probably less, it was more sad but less painful, if that makes any sense at all, because we'd already gone through the Fanny situation, right? We was like,
Right.
oh Lord, the shock of it. And in this
Right.
instance, I was sad because Alice was pregnant. And then I'm thinking, gosh, like she was on her way again,
Right.
right? So now you kind of made the parallel clear. Again, she was on her way to freedom and to safety. And she was just kind of like, I can't, and just go ahead
Well,
and
but
jumped in the river. And
we get the same. We get the same with B, and what was B's husband's name?
Oh, I know Joshua.
Joshua, where
yes,
the
yes,
22 have to put her, out of
yes.
her misery. And
Uh-huh.
Albert specifically, isn't it?
yes,
It's
Right.
Albert specifically
and what
that
that is
yeah,
like for them. But then we
yeah,
get this again with the power dynamic in these interracial relationships again with Caroline and Campbell in the fort.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Joan is diabolical. Now it's
yes,
no getting around
yes,
that.
she is.
She
Yes.
does not care about nobody's feelings, that's for sure. Okay, so we need to wrap up. Adrian, do you have a final question? Because otherwise I can go back to a
No,
question that we don't
I
have that we've
mean,
answered.
you know what? One question that I had written down, Joan, as so clearly Black came first, and then who came to you next?
Oh,
Albert did.
Okay,
okay.
so did
And
is it the way that we get the series? Is that how they came to you, Joan? Or
yes.
okay,
Okay.
Yes.
okay, because that's not
Jeremiah
always
as
the
well.
case, right? Okay,
No,
okay.
but in this case, it is
Hmm.
because I'm a chronological writer.
Okay.
So I have to write in order. I'm not one that can say, let me write this scene down and use it later. My brain sticks. And then and I will sit at a place until I can get past that. I was going to say another thing in keeping with not allowing the reader to figure me out is that in book 1 it was Black's situation, and you figure in book 2 it's Albert's situation, and you figure James gets shot, so book 3 this is his situation, and then Anthony does this thing, so it's his situation. So when you get in the fort, I don't think you think that you're going to encounter what you encounter with Jane being taken, because now you're thinking, okay, so she did everybody. So I revisited because you
Right.
think you have me figured out.
James can't catch a break.
Right. And that was on purpose, because you're not supposed to be able to say, oh, it's someone else's turn.
Right,
So
right,
I
right.
did get a lot of inboxes that said, I'm going to read something else because I can't take it and I can't trust you. And so I did. And people, so just tell me. And I said, I'm not. But one woman said, well, why would you do this? I said, well, why would you think that because James had a turn, he couldn't get a turn again? Shit happens. Shit just happened. And that was meant for the reader to be like, oh my God, what is happening? Because I'm trying to keep you up and thinking.
Yeah.
I want you to be entertained, and I want to engage your emotions as well. I got to tell you, lady, this was one of the best interviews I have ever done, discussions. You guys are wonderful.
Oh,
thank you. I'm like, really?
Yes.
I thought this was a therapy session.
We're just talking.
I love it.
I thought this was a therapy session, because that's how we approach this. Like, we get the author on the line and we're like, listen, okay.
What did you do?
We need to get some things straight here. We don't care about people listening. This is for us. This is therapy for us. Joan, you just,
phenomenal.
This masterpiece. It just, I'm so, like I said, I'm so glad I got past my baggage. And HP, I was the one that told HP, read this. And then she was IMing me like, oh, girl, and then of course,
all
she
hours
emerged,
of the day and night.
She done sent it to mama with no pretext, no, mama, just read this. So, wow. But just what a tremendous gift, Joan. And I think one thing I will say, and you've touched on the research piece, so this is not a question, but truly just, again, giving you your flowers, because the level of detail and the care, the attention that you gave us to getting things right. I don't, do you even have an estimate, Joan, for how many hours of research went into each of these books?
I would think that when I started the book, let's say if the book took 8 months, it was 8 months of research. It just, whatever the book needed.
Okay.
And so the research was extensive. What I did want to just throw in there before we wrap totally up, and I think this is important. So I got the series, and I had written book 4 and was not pleased about having to write book 4, but boxed myself in the corner. So then I ended up having to write book 4. And when I got to the end of book 4, that's why there's an ass in the book named Joan, because I saw myself rolling right into book 5. But what I wanted to say to y'all, because I think it would be, I would be remiss if I close off this without saying, 3 years ago, I listened to a sample of an audio book by Jacoby Diem, and I thought, this man is the person who is my Black. This is who he is. And so I said, I'm going to contact him. And I was so afraid to contact him because I didn't know whether he would do the book. And I had been snubbed a lot in this space. And it was an opportunity to get up on Audible, but I knew if I didn't get him, it would not be worth coming to Audible, right? And so every year from 2017, I said, okay, well, I'm going to ask him this year. And then I said, oh, he's probably going to say no, so I'm going to hold out. So I waited till the next year, and I said, oh, okay, well, this ain't the year. And then the next year, so then we roll into a pandemic, and I say, this is it. I'm going to ask. All he can say is no. And during this time, I'm saving money so that I can afford something that is of his caliber. And I send him this email, and 2 days goes by, no response. So I said, okay, he's not gonna respond, but at least I finally got past my fear and asked him. And then late on the second day, he sent me an email and said, I would love to do Black. I would love to do the whole series. I researched you. is this okay with you? And I said, it is okay. So I called my cousin, extremely, extremely happy about this. And my cousin said, oh, poor man, he took it because it's work. He don't know you. But
What?
you'll see the difference when he gets to read this and be like, okay, who the hell is she? So, my cousin loves me. So I'm thinking he's saying these nice things about me because of that. And then I get this email from Jacoby that basically said, what the hell?
Hmm.
And so he stuck in there with me. And I think every chance I get, I always say, hey, it's important that people know that he gave me an opportunity to compete on Audible, that he brought my series to life, and that book 5 was really written with him in mind and what he had already done for the characters. So a lot of the monologues that Black has is an opportunity to showcase Black's thoughts and his voice. And I am so pleased. But I think he was blown away because he had already narrated book 2 before I admitted to stalking him, basically. So every time he put something out, I was like, oh my God, this dude, but he's probably not going to work with me. And so we just, and I'm just so thankful to that because he opened Black up to a whole new audience. I also want to say this last thing. So that Alexandria House and I have, we're getting ready to launch Audio in Black.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, is that y'all and Wesley or just y'all?
Us.
Okay.
Just
And
me and Alex.
Yes, okay. I want to, because Joan, that was that. I'm glad you reminded me because that was going to be one of my questions. Like, tell us a little bit more, whatever you're prepared to share right now about the platform.
So what Audio in Black is an opportunity for new writers, Black writers across the genre, old writers, good stories, no matter what genre they're in, memoir, Christian fiction, just whatever. We want to showcase Black work. We want to see these reviews from your readers. We want to recognize you. We want to look at people who have work that is really good and say, oh, wow, that needs to be an audio. And we want to help press your audience and get you more following. And I want to say to the new writers, the old writers, if you have written a series better than the Black series, come on, we're going to help you promote it. Because we want you to understand that this space, there is enough room for everyone.
Okay. I like it. And so is it a place you go to get your audio book produced? Or is it a place you go to increase your following?
It's more of a place to go to increase your following because what we're going to do, we have 20 readers that are exclusively ours. Those people will be going out, picking books. They will review them and they will give you an honest review.
Gotcha.
What we will do is we will, some people will get the North Star. And that is, hey, this book is awesome. And so all of the books won't be audio, but we want to promote audio because we want to promote the collaboration of producers, narrators, all of that. And we want to showcase with the new list. You'll see things about Black bookstores. It'll be just a place to celebrate Black writers, Black readers, Black listeners. And it is, and we just want to, so you won't probably see our books being reviewed and not right away, but we will be doing other people. So I think someone will be reviewing your book. So I think your book, Honesty, will be up when we launch on Friday.
Oh my!
The review, yeah.
I love it.
We want to celebrate Black excellence, and I know that I had a hard time, and there were oftentimes older Black writers that I tried to get information from that I could not, and it was a little disheartening. And so I want to be that person that says, "Hey, I got an answer for you. This is what I did. You may be able to do this better." And I want to be able to say, hey, so and so wrote a book. It's on the new release list, so that you know where to go find Black authors.
I love it. I love it. Joan, we're obviously wrapping up, and I got
Okay.
HP's permission to ask you this one last question, because it sounds like there might be a testimony in this, and we'll see. So you posted in your group a conversation between you and God and a chime in from your cousin.
Right.
Can you? I know what it said, but it's better coming from you, because
It's just what you think it is. I had kind of gotten down to being a bit of a drunk, so I was going through a divorce after being married to someone that I was madly in love with for 18 years. And it was difficult to accept. And so I started drinking, and it was kind of a lot. Right. So, and I didn't even realize that my brain had gone to sleep, So I'm going through the things, a bit of a day drinker, Saturday comes, I'm toe up by 11 o'clock in the morning, And I had a cousin say to me, because I had said, I just want to write a series. I want to write something that moves people. And God said, you ain't ready. And so my cousin said one day, I'm concerned because, you've not been a bit of a drinker, but you've been drinking a lot lately. I understand that the marriage is over, but you can't drink yourself into a stupor because of this. I mean, come on. And so I said, I could quit. My cousin said, let's not be flippant about it. Let's actually dry out for a month. Show me that. And so I had stopped drinking for that month. And I remember thinking, damn, like I keep hearing like a lot of conversation going on in my head. I have a lot of scenes in my head. I have a lot of this and that. And so in drying out, it was part of how Black got dusted off, because I needed something to do other than drink. And so started writing, and I don't drink now. Not that I don't want to, because I do. I don't drink now because I don't think it goes well with writing. It just puts my brain to sleep. It doesn't enhance me at all. And so, yep. So that was my thing. I was a wino.
Woo! See, I knew
And
it was
y'all are
clearly.
welcome not to edit this out.
No. This is a testimony, Joan. This is a testimony. I mean, you gave like the quick snippet version in the group, and I said, well, what is this here? Because for other people, right, it's not going to be having this amazing series that's locked away and it's buried under, alcohol, right? For other
Right.
people, it's just tapping into a part of themselves that they either don't know exists, or they feel so disconnected from that part because life has beaten them down. And we never know whose story will be the one that unlocks something for us. So I
And if you
thank
notice,
you.
my actual cousin came and he actually liked and I think commented on that.
Yeah,
My
I didn't.
actual,
I'm gonna go back to because I just saw
yes.
it popped up again. I think earlier today, maybe because someone
Mhm.
else had commented. But number one, you being willing to share that, Joan, and I think because that's something that could have stayed between you, God, and your cousin, right? And people in your inner circle who knew that. And so I thank you though for sharing that. Because again, we never know which one of our stories is the thing that unlocks it for someone else, right? And
Someone else.
again, like I
Yeah.
said, it may not be alcohol and writing, it may be something else, but just hearing that at a certain point, you're not seeing the connection between the two. And your cousin was like, well, gee, why don't you try and step away?
Why don't you try and dry out? And I mean,
Yes.
he wasn't nice about it. We was just in the
Mm.
car one day and he was like, okay, you drink a lot. And I was like, no, not really. He said, listen, the windows are rolled up and you drink a lot.
Mm.
And I want you to dry out. And I remember thinking after the month, this dude loves me. And that's all I could think of. And I think now is, so this is 2022, is that 8 years? I've been 8
Wow.
years without a drink.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. That's
So
beautiful.
we have said many final questions, Jonah. Thank
Yes.
you so much for sharing that.
We love
Thank
you,
you for coming on
Joan.
the podcast. We love you.
Yes.
We love your work. We are looking
Yes.
forward to our short story of a poly romance between Jeremiah, Callie, and Black, or Black, Sunday, and Elbert. You can choose either trio. We are open and we welcome it. And we're gonna have to have you back for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially, you
Joan,
know what we'll do it. We'll have you back when The Fort is on audiobook.
Okay, so y'all need to know that the Fort is coming. He is going to be giving me the files this Friday.
Oh my.
Yes.
Okay.
So the
Yes,
Fort will
yes,
probably go
yes.
live next week if Audible deems it. I'm gonna try to get through it, proof it, and then try to release it to Audible. And I'm not gonna pick a date. I'm just gonna let it go live and then start advertising so that people won't have to wait too much longer. So I will be getting the files Friday.
Okay.
Joan,
So we will come back around. All right. Well, thank you,
Yep.
thank you, thank you. We will have you back.
We love you,
And
Joan.
this
We
has
love
been
you.
great. I can't wait to put it out.
We love you so much.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Okay.
All
Bye.
right.
All right, Joan.